Hello everybody, this is Vincent Grosso here and welcome to My Visually Impaired Life. And I just could not wait to talk to you about something. Yes, it's going to veer off from blindness and visual impairment to a sense, but it's a story I have to tell you guys, something that happened to me, and it is miraculous in my heart, and I wanted to talk about faith. And no, I'm not going to preach you like the choir at church. It's just a story about something amazing that happened to me. So if you're an open-minded individual, you will like the story. If not, you could brush it off. That's fine with me. But I didn't brush it off, and I took it in with an open heart and an open mind, and I hope you guys like this story. So let's talk about it. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode. And today I wanted to talk to you about faith and why my faith is even stronger in believing in the afterlife, heaven, Jesus Christ. And no, I'm not trying to preach again to you guys to convert anybody. I'm just talking about this matter because I have an amazing story you guys might like to hear. So I hope you listen from beginning to end because it's a true story. And it just recently happened within a half a year span, but it's just another thing that brings me closer to wanting to get baptized in the middle of August in the name of Jesus Christ. So, hope you guys listen. Here it goes. I'm a very open-minded individual, and I have a very good family friend, and I'm going to leave names out of this just in case, because I didn't really ask if I could use names, but I asked if I could use the stories, and they said no problem. So this family friend, I've known her since I was a wee little kid. That's how much she's been friends with my sisters. They're like best friends. And she was working, and she felt like she had a headache, and she went to the bathroom at work and collapsed. And the reason why she collapsed is she had a brain aneurysm. In fact, she had 3 brain aneurysms, not 1, not 2, but 3. And she was in a coma for almost 5 months. She was on life support. She was not looking good. And we were all devastated. My sister especially. My sister loves her so much. And I prayed for her like every day. And every other day I'd say the same prayer. And my prayer, letting you guys know now, was I prayed to Jesus to let her come back whole so that she could be a mom to her kids. She's young. She's in her 40s, And I prayed to Jesus to bring her back whole, 100%, if he could, enough that she could still be the parent her kids need. And I also said in the prayer, Jesus, if you could show at all her the afterlife, give her a glimpse and let her bring it back and preach about it so people know. I'm telling you, I said this prayer, and because the reason I said it too was because since my visual impairment, I have been so afraid of death. I'll be honest. I thought I was dying in the beginning. They told me I had MS. If you watched any of my past videos, you know my story. I was so afraid of death. So I was looking up on YouTube NDE experiences, multiple sclerosis, this and that, people dying. I was just afraid. I wanted to know not to be afraid. So I looked up these things, and then I started seeing the scientific facts, and I started, seeing videos based on all these people's stories, no matter what religion they were from, no matter where they lived, what culture they were, they all had the same experience when dying, coming back. So back to my story. So I said that prayer, and months go by, still she's not coming back, it's not looking good. And then all of a sudden she wakes up out of her coma, and it's a miracle. She's awake. That's the last I heard. I didn't know how she was doing, what shape she was in, anything. I know that she was moving her fingers at first to talk to the doctors through communication that way. But what happened was a few months go by after we find out she wakes up, and my sister, my mother, and her go and meet for the first time. She's all done rehab. She did a rehabilitation. She's back up. She's ready to work again. And 3 brain aneurysms. She's 100% back. 100%. And on top of that, she's preaching how she was at the gates of heaven. She was preaching it. She didn't even know my prayer. And I'm not taking claim for my prayer being the reason why. Okay, it sounds like it. I know I'm not. But I'm just telling you this is what brings my faith stronger. So she tells my mother, my sister, that she stood in front of the gates. She was nothing. She was unconscious. Nothing. And then all of a sudden, she's standing in front of the gates of heaven. This massive, massive door that she couldn't even see the top of. It was so massive. And she said that it glowed the brightest light of white gold, if that's even a color. She said it's like between gold and white, but it was so vibrant that if she saw it with her human eyes, she couldn't look at it. She was able to stare at it. And it was beautiful. She felt so at peace and loved and everything. She wanted to be there. And then as soon as she was admiring it, her grandmother, who passed away when she was younger, who had a stroke of her own, she had a stroke and half her body was like, from the stroke damaged. And she saw her looking completely normal and beautiful. And her grandmother looked at her with firm, fierce eyes and said, "You need to go back to your daughters right now. They need you." And she said it in telepathy. And she said, "You need to turn around and go." And I got so scared that she turned around. As soon as she turned around, she was back into her body. Her eyes opened, and she saw the tubes down her throat. She yanked everything out. IVs, the tubes, even the drain pin. They had a pin that drained the blood and air from her brain because of the pressure, and she pulled it right out. She was just freaked out because her grandmother said firmly, "You need to go back now and be there for your kids. Go now." And when she woke up, she had that story to tell, and she said it was real. She claims it's real. Okay, she said it was more real and more reality there than it was here. Her eyes were open there. It wasn't like a dream. And now, anybody would have heard this, would take it with a grain of salt and just said, it's a story. Yes, we understand it's a story. And that's good. You keep that to yourself. Whether it's true or not, science can't prove that. It's just your story. It's your word against a million atheists or whoever. So she tells my sister and my mother that. My mother tells her how I prayed for her, And then I said, I have to talk to her. And then I saw her at a barbecue I had at my house for the first time since this happened, and she looked beautiful. She was so healthy looking. You would have never known she had a brain aneurysm or stroke or anything. She just looked 100 million% better, and she had like this vibrance on her. And I hugged her and I gave her a kiss, and I told her, I told her how I prayed for her. She goes, "I know your mom told me." And I said, "But did my mom tell you that I prayed for Jesus to let you see heaven and to bring it back and preach about it?" And she said, thank you. She's like, "I'm so thankful that you did that." But again, I'm not taking credit for it. Just told her the prayer I had because it's so coincidental. Now, I tell this story to my Bible study. One person at my Bible study. But that one person wanted me to tell everybody at the Bible study. And I told everybody. And then everybody liked the story. Then the pastor got word of it. And the pastor approached me after his sermon a few weeks later and said, "Vinny, I have someone to introduce you to." And this gentleman came walking up to me, never met him a day in my life. He sure doesn't know my friend. And he says to me, "I have three stories to tell you in one." And I said, "Oh, okay. I'm all ears and I'm listening." And I thought this was cool that my pastor brought this guy to me, because he told me he was the drummer at the church, and he is the drummer at the church. And the pastor told me he died and came back with a story to tell. And then the guy said he had 3 stories to tell in one. So the story he told me was he used to own his own company. It was a construction company, so he had loaders, bulldozers, you name it. And what happened was one of his bulldozers crushed him. He got crushed by the bucket or something, or he got pinned between a wall and the machine itself. I can't remember exactly. But what happened was he ended up blacking out. His skull was crushed, everything. He should be dead. And he actually flatlined 3 times. And each time he had a different experience. So the first time he doesn't remember anything. The accident happened, nothing. And all of a sudden he's 2 again, but he's not in his body. He hears him flatline. He sees his body from up atop of the room in the hospital, where he's never even been in this room before. But he could tell you how many doctors were there. He could tell you what was in the room, and which I'm going to get to, because there's a clock, and it's part of the story. And he's looking at all them, and he's listening to what they're saying, everything. And then all of a sudden, he's back in his body. They get a pulse or whatever. And then he flatlines again, out of his body, back up in the same spot, top of the ceiling, looking down at himself. And every time he looks, he tries to turn around because he feels like something's on the side of him. And he turns 180 degrees. He said he's all of a sudden he's in another dimension. And that's what he said, another dimension. He didn't say heaven, he just said another dimension. And he said he saw a stream that went on forever on both ends. And he saw fields and meadows of green. But the second time he turned back around and looked at his body, and he saw them because he thought it was strange, but at the time he didn't know what was going on. And then he did realize it was his own body. He didn't know. And he was back in his body again. And then the third time he flatlined, he back in the room, and he was looking around the room, and he looked at the clock. And he said he noticed it was like 2:30 in the afternoon or something. I'm making up a time, but he told me it was a certain time in the afternoon. And then he got sick of watching the doctors, so he turned around, and again he was back in this other realm or dimension. And he walked forward, or he moved forward, and he came to the stream. And on the left of him, the stream went on forever. It was endless. And then on the right of him, the stream went on forever. It was endless. However, on the right of him was a bridge. A little white bridge. A beautiful little white bridge. And, but he wanted to be on that other side so bad, because when he looked over, like I said, he saw the greenest grass he's ever seen in his life. He said they were all glowing like a goldish whitish light. They were all emanating their own light. Each strand of grass was emanating its own source of light. And the fields were beautiful, and all he wanted to do was be on that side. So instead of going to the bridge, he just walked straight into the water. And he said when he got to the middle of the water towards the other side, which it wasn't super deep obviously, he got stopped by, get this, his grandmother. His grandmother, who died when he was younger. She stopped him and talked to him in telepathy in the same way, told him he could not be there. He needed to go back. He still had work to do. And he didn't want to listen to her. He just felt so good. He just knew he needed to be on that other side. He didn't feel like he had anything here. He felt it was all there. He felt at home. So while she was talking to him, he got to the point where he wasn't even listening to her anymore, and he was trying to find a way around her. And when he tried, she was right there in front of him. And she was getting firm with him, saying, "You have to go back." And he ended up getting frustrated, turning around, and as soon as he turned around, he was back in that hospital room. And then he saw his body, and then right back to his body. And he woke up, in the hospital and all that stuff. And that was his story. But what are the similarities? These two strangers that just walked into my life. Oh, one being a friend I grew up with, but her story to this complete stranger I'd never met in my life. They both tell me these two stories, very different, but very similar in the same. Oh, and by the way, I didn't add at the end of that story, the clock was 2:30. When he came back to his body, he felt like he was there for 5 minutes. He said he was gone for over 3 hours. He realized it when he came back to the room. First thing he did was look at the clock. And it was 3 hours later. So, and I guess he said it took like 7 to 8 hours of surgery to get him, back to where he was supposed to be. And, you know, but it's amazing. 2 separate stories. They're different, but similar, all in the same. And when I heard this other guy, I knew in my hearts of hearts, heaven is real. Okay? It's real. You know, they both didn't see a gate, but they both saw the golden white light. They both felt the same emotions. They both had their grandmother come and tell them it's not their time, that they had to go back. And, you know, it just clarifies for me that me getting baptized in the middle of August is the right thing. And it hasn't been until I searched for Jesus in the Bible, when I thirsted for him, that my life started to change. So again, I'm not trying to convert anybody. This is just a story. But I had to tell it. This had to be told. So this is not my testimony. It's only a piece of my testimony. Just like my other story on miracles. If you haven't seen that episode, watch it. That was just a piece in my testimony. So many things that I don't take for granted and I don't take with a grain of salt. So I hope you guys like the story. I have other ones I could tell. If you're curious to what my other testimonial stories are, like how it started from the beginning to the end, I will go through it. Tell me in the comment section if you want me to tell you the whole thing. I'll be honest, I've been a little nervous to tell people because, number one, I don't want you thinking I'm crazy. Number two, I don't want you feeling like I'm pushing anything on you. And number three, I just want everybody to be happy being who they are. I don't like to change anybody. But this is an amazing story and I thought you guys would like it. So, thank you for listening. Thank you all my subscribers. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell right next to it. And hit the like button if you like the story. Tell me in the comment section below if anything abnormal happened to you in your life. I'd like to, know. And it would be awesome if everybody else can hear it through the comments. So thank you guys. You will be hearing from me again. I will be talking to you next week in the next video. See you later.